This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network.
Welcome, gather round the fireside and listen to a tale of Fionn McCool, Cullen, Deirdre of the Sorrows, Grainne Wail. From giants right down to fairies, of both the drooping and solitary, and those who are sometimes scary. Anything goes by the fireside. Yeah. Fireside, the Puka Fireside, the Marrow Fireside. Kings and queens fighting heroes, don't you run from the fun, there's no need to hide. Sit by the fireside. Fireside.
Hello and welcome to Fireside, the Irish storytelling podcast. Each episode of Fireside, we take a story from folklore or mythology, retell it, have a chat about the tale itself, and about the craft, the culture and the history of storytelling. My name is Kevin C. Olahan, and I am your host and your Fireside Bard. Welcome to episode 259 of Fireside. Today on the Irish storytelling podcast, we have a tale of the sea, or rather a tale of those who are left at home when others go to the sea. This is the tale of the fisherman's wife. But before we get down to that, if you are enjoying this podcast, if this is your first time listening, you're very welcome. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for your continued support. If you do wish to support the podcast in a more direct way, you can follow me over on Instagram at FiresideBard. Email me at thefiresidebard@gmail.com. You can join Headstuff Plus at headstuffpodcast.com, where for €6 a month you can gain access to bonus material for Fireside. We have new episodes at the moment coming out on the bonus feed with every main episode of Fireside. This week's episode is a deep dive of my personal history with the musical Into the Woods, which is very much a musical not just featuring but about folklore and about storytelling and why we do continue to tell old stories and what happens after folk tales finish. That's a really personal bonus episode for me, and that joins the now 5 other episodes on the members only page, where you can access for €6 a month, or for €8 a month you can access not just bonus episodes for Fireside but for all of the other podcasts on the Headstuff Plus podcast network. That's just the incentive there if you fancy giving a little bit extra and gaining access to a few more, and we'll be adding, as I say, more and more every week for the foreseeable, at least until I at least have a good backlog of episodes in the bank there. The final way you can support the podcast is to buy my book, Garden Sea, A Neo-Myth of Home, my poetry collection on the history, folklore and religion of growing up in the county of Wicklow. That is available in paperback from the Headstuff website or directly, instantly via Kindle, via Amazon. All of the links are in the description below. And that is all the hard sells out of the way. And with that in mind, let's get right down to the story. This is yet another tale from Uncanny Ireland, which is one of my great sources at the moment, balancing out the more mythological stories from the land of myths and magic, both editions from the British Library, and both very much great sources that seem to very much reflect as well very much an Irish perspective in London, which is how I'm experiencing life right now as an Irishman in London. And these have been a great source of folklore and mythological wealth, and I look forward to sharing more and more of these stories with you. I think both these editions will be the sources for Fireside for the next good few months, certainly until about Christmas, I imagine, as we continue to build back up the momentum of the podcast. But this story particularly it's not a million miles away from the story from a few weeks ago, the Gothic romance of the mysterious cave featured in the story The Spirit of the Hill, but this one has a much less gothic tone. This one feels a little bit more rooted and less perhaps melodramatic. Not that the melodrama was a bad thing in The Spirit of the Hill, it was definitely something I leaned into, but you can tell this is definitely written with a very different tone. But we'll have all conversations like that once we have finished the story. But this is the tale of the fisherman's wife on Fireside. The fisherman's wife. Surely not, said Kate Browne to her husband as she stared at the current state of his fishing boat. What are you talking about? Asked Dermot to his long-suffering wife of 17 years. Look at the state of the thing, said Kate. There's a hole in the keel and one of your oars is worn to a nub. You can't go out in that. Sure, that's nothing, said the stubborn Dermot. I'll plug that hole with me hat. That'll hold. And that oar's fine. Honestly, you'd swear you weren't married to a fisherman. But Kate was unconvinced. She said, I'm after getting a rake of nails in Waterford. Please just take the time to fix that hole properly and at least put a bit of extra support on that oar. Dawn was approaching fast, and the sun was threatening to light up the Irish southeast coast. The sunny southeast, as it is still known, even on an island so full of wind and rain. Kate, I don't have time, said Dermot. The herring are out there, and if I don't catch them, another man will, and then we'll have no money to keep the house or raise the children. The couple's eldest child, Benjamin, was loading up the worn and damaged curragh. Kate said, Can you not talk some sense into your father? We'll be fine, Mammy, said the nonchalant youth. We'll be back in the morning with enough fish for the entire village. But can I ask you a favour? Benjamin took a handkerchief from his pocket. If you see Stasha Byrne, can you give this to her? She promised to hem it for me. Mrs. Browne took the piece of cloth and looked over her shoulder. The young maiden Stasha Byrne was hiding behind a rock and ducked down once she was seen. Will you not see us off? Dermot called to his wife. But Kate stayed rooted to the spot. Tears began to stream down her face. You should go to her, Benjamin said to his father. It can't be good luck to start a voyage with bad blood like this. Sure, what would you know about fishing, Lord of Ock? Said Dermot. Over 20 years I've been doing this. The only thing that demands respect is the sea. Your mother worries, because that's her lot in life. I don't bother her with matters of the house and the land, and she knows nothing of the sea. Father and son climbed into the little vessel and shoved off the beach and rowed out to hunt the bonny shoals of herring. The fisherman's wife stood as a cliff on the beach, watching her husband and son disappear over the horizon. There was a knot in her stomach tight enough to moor a schooner. As she walked back home, she called to Stasha Byrne. Come out from behind that rock, you silly girl. I believe my son wants you to hem this for him. She gave the girl the handkerchief. Can you show me how? Asked Stasha, embarrassed. Kate liked the young girl, and she knew she needed company tonight while her boys were away at sea. Come and stay with me in the house tonight. I'll show you how to sew that hanky, and if you're lucky, we may even get on to netting. Stasha was overjoyed. I've even learned a new song I can sing for you. And the two women returned to Kate's cottage. They were immensely glad of each other's company. Stasia hoped to marry the young Benjamin, and so she thrilled at the opportunity to spend time with her prospective mother-in-law and to learn the ways of a fisherman's wife. But the sense of foreboding never quite left Kate. Stasia was a good distraction, but the young maiden could only do so much. Naturally, having been married to Dermot for 17 years, she was used to him going off for days at a time. He had endured storms and gales and had returned home battered, cut and bruised, but he always returned. Some days were easier than others, but this felt different. That night, Kate and Stasia shared Kate's bed. They both lay restless for hours. Kate did eventually slip off into an uneasy sleep, but Stasia would later claim that she never for an instant lost consciousness. What casts that statement into doubt is what the girl saw that night. It was not long after Kate drifted off that Stasia had a vision. It was Benjamin. He appeared to her clear as wax, but he was not quite in a physical form. Stasia thought she must be dreaming or delirious. She tried to shake Kate awake to confirm or deny the apparition. Benjamin appeared melancholic, but peaceful. Stasia felt as if he wanted her to feel okay. She took a moment with her beloved youth. Neither spoke, but gazed into each other's eyes, only lit by the moon peering through the window. Kate began to stir next to Stasia. The maiden looked over, and when her gaze returned, Benjamin was gone. Stasia then sat bolt up and began to shake Kate. The fisherman's wife awoke, and Stasia Browne told her what she had seen. Kate raised her hand to her mouth and began to cry. "Oh, my blessed son. He's dead." The words and the belief that they could be true caused Stasia to faint. When the girl woke up, it was morning, and the sun was high in the sky. She was alone, and prayed it had all just been a dream. But as Stasia walked downstairs and through the cottage, Kate's absence filled her with dread. There was only one place to go, and that was back down to the shore. Stasia Browne ran to the shore with the wind behind her, and once she was in sight of the water, all her worst nightmares became a reality. There was Kate, collapsed on the ground, and Dermot dragging from the boat the damp, dead body of their son Benjamin. Stasia did all she could to contain her screams of horror. Her impulse was to let her mother grieve, and she ran from the beach. Kate Browne was filled with a range of emotions. Emotions that no one, much less a mother, should ever endure. She felt devastation at the loss of her son, rage at her husband for not heeding her advice, and a profound guilt of having foreseen this outcome and having been powerless to prevent it. It was 2 months before Kate Browne left her house again. Dermot continued to go to sea, for longer periods each time, and always alone. It was the only thing he was ever good at, and so it was the only thing he could do now. The first time the fisherman's wife left her home since the drowning of her son was to visit Stasha Browne. She told the girl, "I know you're in pain. You were robbed of a love as I was a son. And I thank God for every day I got with him. But take heart, child, because it was you, not me, that Benjamin appeared to. It might hurt now, but you can spend the rest of your life knowing that he truly loved you, and that even on his way to eternal rest, visited you to let you know that everything would be all right and that you were loved and always would be. With that in mind, I would like you to come and live with us. You would have been my daughter-in-law, and so let that be the case. I will be as a second mother to you. And some good will come of this, my child. Dermot spends every day fixing the boats of every fisherman in the area. We can only pray no more mothers will be robbed of their sons, or lovers of each other, at least not in this village, and at least not in my lifetime. We cannot control who the Lord gives and who the Lord takes, but perhaps we can the sea." And Stasha looked to her own mother, who had 7 other children of her own. The mother gave her blessing, and Stasha Browne went to live with Kate and Dermot Browne. And she still lives there today. And although she has had many suitors over the years, Stasha Browne never forgot her beloved Benjamin Browne. And despite losing him before they could ever wed, Stasha Browne lived her days as a fisherman's wife. The end. And there we have the tale of the fisherman's wife on Fireside, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Yes, you can see what I mean about the overlap of the spirit of the hill, those who've been listening recently and have it fresh in their mind, that it is, but rather than it being the story of a jilted lover, is very much like the love of a woman for a fisherman, only this time, or in that case, it's a hunter, but one who goes to sea quite a bit. But in this case, we have a mother and a husband, a mother and a son, and a young girl and a young boy in love with each other, and the overlaps and the different complexities of those various relationships. And in Uncanny Ireland, in the source that I found for this is a story from about the 1830s. This one's quite old. And its authorship is to a female writer called Anna Maria Hall, who, despite her work being considered quite overtly Christian and to agree kind of austere and puritanical at times, she's noted as having been profoundly interested and forthright in essentially like unpacking and reevaluating the role of women in society at the time. And this story is a good example of that, in that it's less focused on the voyage of the fishermen, and there are obviously countless stories of voyages to sea, and big and small, whether it's like from the Odyssey itself down to simply a father and a son going fishing for herring. But in this case, it is entirely the story of those who are left behind, of a mother and a betrothed, for lack of a better term. And we begin with this essentially like premonition, although it's not really a premonition. I mean, it seems like the boat is in fair rag order, hole in the keel and like a broken oar, and it really speaks to a male stubbornness, and particularly in male-female relationships, this constant, certainly in Ireland, this like "it'll be grand" kind of philosophy, that mothers are for their sons and women for their partners. That this sense of like, oh, would you not just like, would you mind yourself? Or like from like, will you wear a coat, or will you wear a helmet, or will you not have too many tonight? And everything, just basic levels of care and health and safety that so many men just inherently reject and go, ah, it'll be grand, or I'm fine, or I don't need you to look after me. And usually, of course, the people worried about these kind of things, male or female, are usually proven right. We constantly battle this back and forth between anxiety and stupidity, or anxiety and this perception of bravery or courage or being strong and not needing to be looking after. And we get a real snapshot of that at the beginning of this story with the stubbornness of Dermot, who is the seasoned fisherman, but it also speaks to a complacency that happens when we are proficient at something. When we've done something many, many times over years and years, and we believe it's truly in our bodies and in muscle memory, and that we begin to know it more than anyone else, that is when things start to slip by the radar and we do overlook things and we make mistakes. But we are no less ill-equipped to heed the warnings of people we perceive to know less about it than we do. And so Kate is forced to watch Dermot and her son go to sea. And then we meet this girl, wonderful name, Statia Burn. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's Statia, so like Stacia. I think Statia sounds, Statia Burn seems to sound right in my head. But if anyone has known of that name or its origins, please do send me a message about that. But we meet this Benjamin's beloved, who Kate takes home with her, and we have this lovely scene of this mother and prospective daughter-in-law. I liked that idea of Stasia basically going to keep the mother company, but also to see what life would be ahead for her if she was to marry Benjamin itself. I was interested in. That's why I changed the title. The title was The Drowned Fisherman. Itself quite a good title, but I like considering the focus of the story was on Kate rather than Dermot or Benjamin. I like to refocus the title, and also this idea of this generational role that by the end it is Stasia who becomes the fisherman's wife, despite not marrying Benjamin at all, that she lives with Kate and Dermot and very much does live this existence. And because she never forgets Benjamin and has suitors, but it is implied that she never marries again, she very much does live this life as a fisherman's wife or a fisherman's widow. Also, like the widow's watch is those balconies on fishermen's cottages as to watch as sailors went off to sea, possibly to never return. And this was one of those stories. I've said this many times in the podcast. Every so often, I'm researching a story, and from a first reading, I feel I have enough of a sense of it to write it. And those are usually some of my favorite writing experiences, at least, where at least like the beats of a story are so clear that they tend to be when I can put the most of myself in a story. If a story is particularly bogged down with a lot of detail, which they often are, sometimes, like take a recent story of, Sir Frederick Hamilton and Manor Hamilton and the burning of the church. That was based on a historical event, so that was something I needed to get a lot of dates correct for and a lot of real titles and place names. There's no bad thing in that, but it is far more, I have to keep the source quite close to me. So I probably stick in those cases much closer to the source material, which is fine. But for my purposes as a writer and in adaptation and in terms of continuing and spreading folklore, it's more beneficial to me to embody these tales and tell them as completely in my own words as I can. And this is very much a story like that. So, for example, you see that in this opening exchange between Dermot and Kate, that I was able to very much just like have this dialogue between them that was totally mine, rather than quoting directly from the source. And that really speaks to the strength of the original story itself, that there are these very clear beats. It's very well laid out. We've got father and son going off to sea. Mother has the sense of dread, takes the girl home. Girl has the vision, wakes up, the vision has come true. The son is drowned. She lives this life. They grieve the son. And then this quite interesting twist at the end of Kate inviting Stasha to live with her, despite the fact that Stasha has her own mother and home. That this premonition, this vision that Stasha had of Benjamin, signifying that she was the love of his life, and so why shouldn't she even in death live with his family? And I know I mentioned in the story that they had other children, but there are no other children featured in the story, and the implication is that Stasha and Kate are the only ones in the cottage at night. So perhaps Benjamin was their only son, in which case the house, the property might perhaps go to Stasha after Kate and Dermot die. But there you have again, like, there's a story that I love when a story makes you think about, oh, I wonder what happened to them after the fact, after the end, after happily ever after, or not so happily ever after in this case. The relationship between Kate and Dermot post Benjamin drowning is interesting as well. I added in that detail of this rage she felt, as you would. You know, she had begged him not to go to sea, and Dermot survives, but Benjamin doesn't, and Benjamin, you know, is younger than 17. He is the innocent in this situation, and he is the one who suffers his father's pride. And so I added that, like, certainly in this time, people would have grieved in their own ways, and mortality rates, especially in sailors and fishermen, were absurdly high. The risks were very well known involved, because the sea remains completely unpredictable, and there's only so much you can know it. But I did like that Kate does, that was a detail from the source, that Kate says that Dermot has vowed his life to the safety of boats. It seems a little bit too little too late, unfortunately. It's a shame that this tragedy had to occur for him to experience that, but that there was the good. It reminds me of Senna, of the documentary about the racing driver, about how the tragedy of his death led to drastic improvements in safety in Formula One racing, and that there has not been a casualty since Senna, and hopefully there will not be, of the good that can be taken from tragedy to make sure that ideally it doesn't happen to anyone else. But as always, let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this story, as I always hope you enjoy them. You can always let me know at FiresideBard. Send me a message on Instagram. Email me at thefiresideBard@gmail.com. You can also comment under these episodes on Spotify. That seems to be a way a lot of people are reaching out to the podcast now, which I get alerts for when I upload the podcasts. You can, of course, if you've enjoyed this episode and you're hungry for more, join Fireside, join Headstuff Plus at headstuffpodcast.com. The link is in the description below. For €6 a month, not only can you, in a very direct way, support Fireside and keep it going, but you can gain access to all our bonus episodes. And we have a brand new bonus episode coming out with this episode, as I said at the beginning, on a personal history I have with the musical Into the Woods, Stephen Sondheim's masterpiece of what happens after Happily Ever After. That is available there, alongside our trilogy on the Irish folklore trilogy, on Wolfwalker's Song of the Sea and The Secret of Kells. We have our other episode on Hadestown, the musical. We have our episode from last week on readings I did of books I got at the Granite Booktown Festival, my experiences at that festival and meeting the writers of these books. if you're looking for new things to read. And there's lots more coming. I'm hoping to have a good variety of episodes, always looking for suggestions of stuff as well you'd like to hear on the Fireside bonus material as on the main episodes. And of course, the final thing, you can buy my book at Headstuff Plus, at Headstuff Podcast as well, in paperback, Garden Sea, which can be shipped all around the world. And next week we will have a really interesting story, a kind of mythic tale of the biblical figure Joseph of Arimathea and the story of Glastonbury. Not the festival of like the land itself, but very much I feel why that land is so sacred and why it is such an incredible place for that musical festival. And I will talk about that and my own experiences in that festival, how there is this very spiritual sense there. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. I'll see you all. You'll hear me all next time. And remember, wherever you are and wherever you go, you can always join me by the fireside.
This show is part of the Headstuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Headstuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.